Hello and welcome to Oilers On Air Insider, a little summer edition. Right now joined by head women's basketball coach Jim Wiedie. And Jim, always a busy summer. I'm sure it's been busy here. How are things going for you?
Things are going well. It's been a good summer for us. Camps went well. Numbers were good. Recruiting has gone well so far, so we're excited about that. Early on when we started off, we're done with the 17 class. We only had one scholarship in that 2017 class. So, so far this summer, it's all been focusing on the 2018 class and the 2019 class, which is kind of scary, trying to project that far out with some of the kids talent-wise. But those are both going to be two big classes for us. We're going to lose quite a bit in both of those classes.
Right, and this is your sixth season here, 2 years as assistant, now your fourth year as head coach, and you kind of see the roster kind of shape up kind of what the type of athlete you're looking to get.
Yeah, and I think we have a vision in mind, the type of player that we want to recruit that we think fits our system offensively and defensively, and I think we've finally gotten to that point. With Carly Boner this year, she was really the first kid that I had an opportunity to recruit. Margaret and Kelsey were already coming in when I got here as an assistant coach, so I had the pleasure of coaching them, but not actively recruiting them. So, the roster as it's made up now is basically ours. So the vision that we have, we think we've got the personnel to fit the style of play, both offensively and defensively. And even though we were a little disappointed with perhaps how we played last year, especially the second half of the year, we understood as a coaching staff and as a team, and we talked about it a lot in the postseason meeting, about getting back to what we do best and getting back to the way we want to play. And that incorporates the pressing, consistently, pushing the ball a little bit more offensively, but just really focusing more on the defensive end of the ball, which we probably got away from, last year, and I think it really hurt us the second half of the season.
Well, let's talk a little bit about last year, because I don't know, you've been coaching a long time. You're in Indiana State beforehand. Have you ever been through a year like that? You get off to 10-3 start the first, 13 games, and then the wheels just fell off.
Yeah, it's at one point we were 10-1, and 6-2 against the North. I think it was a combination of, you have a very young roster for the most part, a lot of freshmen and sophomores, 13 freshmen and sophomores. Defensively, it's always a challenge for young players. And I forget sometimes even those sophomores, they played a lot, they're still fairly young and inexperienced. So I think you take that into consideration a little bit. I don't think, especially the second half of the season, and probably early on, we didn't put enough emphasis on defending the way that we needed to. We got away from playing zone. We started playing a lot more man-to-man. We kind of listened to our players a little bit more. That was something that they seemed to feel more comfortable with. Not really something that I've been comfortable with, because we've never really played that. In my entire 13 years as a head coach or whatever, it's always been we press and we fall back into matchup zone. So we kind of got away from some of that stuff, and I think that hurt us. We realized that we probably could have emphasized some things differently, maybe taught things a little bit better. So we take responsibility as a staff for some of our deficiencies, especially on the defensive end. And then I think we just hit a tough stretch there. There was about a 3-week stretch where, you had a couple games that came down to a last-second shot that the opponent hit. We had an overtime loss. We had a double overtime loss. So I think that from a psychological standpoint, I think it really took its toll on our kids, and we just didn't know how to bounce back. And then we had some bad losses, some maybe losses that you can't really explain. We go over to Malone, we beat them by 25 or whatever, and we come back and we lose on senior day. We play a really good game on a Thursday night against Ashland here at home, and we come back on a Saturday afternoon and we lose to Lake Erie. So just a bad combination, and just a tough stretch for us, and we never just really didn't seem to recover.
And it's really is a fine line in the GLIAC. You go 15-13, the 10-12 in the conference, but you mentioned it. Lose by 6 in overtime to Saginaw, 2 to ODU, lose by 3 to Tiffin. Play Ashland twice. Both times were very competitive games. Losing double overtime by Walsh. You just get 2 or 3 of those, you're in the GLIAC tournament.
Yeah, it changes your whole mindset. It changes the whole entire season. And, there were probably 3 to 5 games that we kind of let get away, whether it was our own undoing or just, sheer bad luck in the way that our opponent played. I think the biggest thing that was disappointing was how we finished the year. You can handle some of the losses, and you look at the last-second shots, and you look at the overtime games, and that comes down to a few plays. And maybe you could have put yourself in a better situation earlier in the game. But we still had 3 games left in the season, and we still had a chance to make the conference tournament. And it really started with us winning the games that we needed to win, and we didn't do that. And that was probably the most disappointing part of the year, was how we approached those last 3 games and how we played, knowing that we still had an outside shot, and we didn't really play the way we were capable of playing.
Well, your young team last year, and we'll talk about next year. You're going to be young again next year, but experience. But you do lose a couple of seniors. You lose Kelsey Lewis, who'd been a 4-year player for you, and then Margaret Webker, really a 4-year starter. Averages 12 points per game for you. You're the leading scorer, so that'd be a tough loss.
Yeah, you look at a player like Kelsey, who's your typical overachiever. A kid that just works really hard, so fundamentally sound, made herself into the player that she ended up being a very solid player for us, somebody that contributed in her 4 years here, an inside presence. The thing that we're probably going to miss the most about Kelsey is maybe not necessarily the on-court stuff, it's the off-court stuff. She was a fantastic captain, a great leader, led by example, was also vocal. But some of the things that we did off the court as a team, and Kelsey, kind of had that monitor as the team mom. And I think because of her maturity and the way she's wired, that's probably pretty apropos to say that. So we're going to miss that probably more than anything. Mags, just, one of the best players that's ever played here. I think when you look back at her career, from a coaching standpoint, I think it's a little unfulfilled. I saw stretches throughout the 4 years, especially her senior year, where she was dominant. Was the best player on the floor night in and night out, and probably one of the best players in the GLIAC, but yet statistically maybe didn't show that. And at times when we really needed, her to be that, put us on your back, carry us, especially with a young group, there's a lot of responsibilities that go with that position. When you're an all-conference player and a projected, first team all-conference player, the expectations are high, and there's a lot of pressure there. And I'm not sure if Mags is really wired to handle that. I think it's a complementary role, yes, but that leader type where you're going to score 20-plus points every night, you're going to get double-figure rebounds, and even on a bad night, you're going to, we can pencil you in the book with 15 and, 6 or 8. Probably not so, but, again, we're going to, anytime you lose your leading scorer in a player as beloved as Margaret, it's going to be a challenge, and we'll see who steps up and fills that role.
Well, Coach, you look at this year's team, and you're just starting to put this team together, but you look at the board up there, at least I look at it, just one senior. Have you ever had a team where you had just one senior? I think people on the outside would look and say, well, you got a very young team, but then you have so many sophomores and juniors that have so much experience.
Yeah, I think when you look at, most of the teams, that have success, whether it's our conference or any other conference or whatever division, it's either a heavy senior loaded or heavy junior loaded. And, those juniors have been playing for a long time, and most of them have a lot of game experience. Bones has been a starter pretty much the 3 years that she's been here. Now, she's been battling some back issues and had some problems throughout the season that I wasn't aware of until after the season was over, because that's the type of kid she is. She's just not going to let you know if she's hurting or how she's feeling and all that. But she's basically been on shutdown since the spring, and is going to continue to be that way. Probably we'll see in the fall how she feels when she comes back, but she's just been rehabbing. But, to have a senior like that's probably one of the best and may go down as being the best three-point shooter in the history of our program, that I sleep better at night knowing that. And I think this junior class is really going to have to step up. But, I think that they're more than capable of doing that. So it'll be interesting to see how the sophomores do, but we'll be relying on that junior class and Carly quite a bit this year.
And Carly Boner averages about 40% from three, averaged 10 points for you last year. Haley Horseman, probably your top returner, 12 points per game, and shot 50% from the field. I think maybe the thing that we're always harping on Haley is you want more. You want more shots, more opportunities.
It's we've addressed it on a number of occasions. I've addressed it with her one-on-one more than I care to mention, to be honest with you. I have never in 25 years of college coaching as a head coach or an assistant ever had a player that works harder than that kid on a daily basis or puts more time into it in every phase of the game. And what I don't understand is why you don't allow yourself to embrace the role that's going to be given to you to become that go-to player. And she kind of played that way in high school. And, when the game was on the line, she would take over in the fourth quarter, but probably could have dominated from the opening tip to the final buzzer. But, we talked about it in our wrap-up meeting. And I went around the room and I told every kid what my expectations were for them, what I saw their role being, where they were going to be at least starting the beginning of the year. And Haley, was that kid. I said, you need to shoot the ball 15, 20 times a game. You do. You have to. Your skill set, it puts you in a position to be the best player on the team. You're the hardest worker on the team. We've made her a captain this spring, and I think that will help. I've already seen a change in her as trying to become more of a vocal leader. But, I joke with her about, she's in the gym an hour and a half, 2 or 3 times a day, getting up shots, doing, shooting on the gun, shooting off the dribble, got the cones and trash cans set up, and then gets in a game and shoots 6 times. My comment to her is, I'm going to, you get to shoot 6 times in your workout, and once you're done, go. Because that's basically what you're doing. And, I think it's just trying to get her mentally past the frustration when she misses a couple shots and understanding that that's going to happen. But she makes up for it on the other end of the floor, and, just because of how hard she plays and her energy. But she's got to be the go-to player, and that's going to be our biggest challenge, is convincing her of that.
Certainly looking for big things from Haley this year, and a couple other players that had some nice years, and I think are ready to take the next step would be, Lindsay Engelbrecht, top 3-point shooter in the GLIAC, and I think nobody knows it. And then Anna Hintz really had a nice freshman year, and those 2 players should be ready to go.
I think those 2, very happy for Lindsay in the year that she had last year. Again, one of the best pure shooters that I've seen, and that was the main reason when we recruited her was, envisioning her doing what she did last year. And, she's worked extremely hard. She's probably, last year was in the best shape that she'd been in since she'd been here, and I can see that continuing to improve, where she's at right now in the summertime. But, quick released, a little deceptive because she can do stuff off the dribble that, maybe Bones can't do, create a shot for herself a little bit more, and we need her to get to the basket more. But, if she can follow up last season with something similar or close to that this year, we're going to be in pretty good shape. So expectations are high for her, and Anna is going to be right there in that role with Haley. I just see, because of her skill set and what she brings to the table and her versatility, now trying to convince her as a sophomore, that you need to take on that scoring role. But I think what will help her is the experience she got last year, playing kind of behind Margaret a little bit at that particular position, and even behind Kelsey at times, and then she eventually was put into that starting role. With those 2 gone, I think you're going to see a totally different player. I think as a freshman, it's hard for you to come in as a post player when you've got 2 senior posts ahead of you, especially an all-conference player, and take on that scorer's role. You're always hesitant, you're always kind of deferring to the veterans, and then you pick and choose your spots. But now I think Anna realizes, the role that she needs to assume this year, and I think she's ready for that challenge. And
a very deep team you have, and maybe one of the nice things about having a tough season is you played a lot of people, and there's still 8 other girls coming back that we haven't even talked about, right. and somebody's going to take another step forward.
I think it's the most versatile roster we've had. I think it's the most athletic roster we've had. It'll be the biggest roster we've had as far as total number of players, and then also size-wise. We've got some 6'2" kids. We've got some athletes. We can play multiple positions. And I think that you're going to see there's always a big jump from the freshman to sophomore year, and there should be a considerable jump from sophomore to junior year. So, it's a team that they work hard, some more so than others, but for the most part, from top to bottom, they put a lot of time and effort into their game, and I've seen that. And I think the biggest thing this year is the attitude. I think that we all understand as a group what we didn't do last year well, what we let slide a little bit, and it ended up costing us. And I think that commitment back to the things that we need to do in order to put ourselves in a position to be successful and, make that conference tournament and see where we go from there. But I love this team. I mean, they're a great group of kids. They work hard. They're fantastic, in the community, and they're outstanding academically. So there's not too much to complain about from a head coaching standpoint.
Well, Coach, 4 in your recruiting class, you take 2 transfers. Sarah Barry, the transfer from Bowling Green, and Lisa Elbrock, a local kid from OG, and then 2 freshmen, Kaylee Hinton and Allie Fredrickson. both from Michigan. So a nice blend of players there.
Yeah, I think the two that jump out at you right away are Sarah Bear and Alyssa Ellerbrock. I mean, those are two kids that have college playing experience, especially Sarah playing at BG and filling that post void, with Margaret and Kelsey graduating. So, Sarah played a lot as a freshman up there, maybe didn't get as many minutes as a sophomore, but brings that experience and brings size and athleticism. So we're looking forward to her once the soccer season is over, stepping into a key role for us. And Alyssa is somebody that we tried to recruit hard out of high school, went to Gannon, had a really good freshman year, but things didn't quite work out the way that maybe she had anticipated, and now she's back. So it's a blessing for us to have her back here. You talk about a phenomenal athlete and a player that's just scratched the surface of how good she can be. Those two will make an immediate impact, and I expect them to right away. As far as Keely and Allie, Keely is in a situation where she's got a lot of veteran guards ahead of her. But the thing that she brings to the table more than anything is her ability to shoot. And when you look at from a pure shooting standpoint, Bones and Lindsay are probably the two best, and Haley's probably right there in the mix. But Keely can stroke it as well, so that's something that we're looking from her. Allie is a 6'2", gifted post player, and we expect her to come in and play right away. How much so, we'll see. But we just love her athleticism and her length. But I think those two freshmen, what's different with them versus the freshmen we've had the last few years, you don't necessarily have to rely on them. Whatever they give to you that first year is a bonus, but you're not expecting, based on the personnel you got coming back, where those guys are going to have to start or maybe play a key role. We'll see what happens as the roles start to become more defined. But again, we're excited about the roster and see what those young kids can do.
Well, Coach, we'll wrap things up talking a little bit about your schedule just released, and it's a tough schedule. 6 of your first 7 are on the road. Your first 4 non-conference, you're talking about some serious names there. When you look at St. Louis, Indy, Wheeling, you got to go again. It comes here. Then you got to go up to Grand Valley Fair. This is a tough start to the season.
Yeah, actually, and that schedule is probably a little bit different right now. We start off in the crossover challenge over at Indianapolis, and they've got a new head coach this year, but that's a team that's traditionally been extremely strong. UMSL was supposed to be in that tournament. Now they've been replaced by Lewis,
so it got better.
I don't know. From a record standpoint, you're talking about one of the premier teams in the GLVC. So that upgrades our schedule tremendously. We got Wheeling Jesuit that we have to go to. Right after that, we're in discussions about possibly going down to Northern Kentucky and playing them on November 19th because Salem International dropped us. So now you're talking about a Division I opponent potentially. You have to go to Malone. So a lot of road games early on. So we'll definitely get tested, before we come home and play Gannon and Dearborn and St. Joe's. And then, GLIAC play, you got to go up to Ferris and Grand Valley. And it was a nightmare last year going up to Grand Valley. I just hope that we don't have a repeat of that particular game. But we'll find out a lot about ourselves, those first 5 or 6 games. But hopefully, again, I think we've got a team where we should be able to handle a schedule like that. It's challenging, but we did it for a reason. We think that we've got enough experience. We think we've got enough talent, and we're going to find out what type of team we're going to become as we head into GLIAC play.
All right, Coach. We'll practice right around the corner, and we'll be talking more basketball here soon. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks, Chase.
That's head coach Jim Wiedie, and that's all for now.